back, Operation Tabula Rasa. The indigenous, I'm here, Operation Tabula Rasa, and like I said before, I'm Marine Corps veteran. They call me the Black Smedley Butler, for the Smedley Butler unit. The Black Smedley Butler. If you don't know who Smedley Butler is, then just look it up. Look it up. I'm also part of the Indigenous Army of Haiti. Now, the Indigenous Army of Haiti is interesting. It's very, very interesting. You know what I'm saying? The Indigenous Army of Haiti. Now, the breakdown of the Indigenous Army of Haiti is interesting because of the fact that my ancestors chose to call it the Indigenous Army of Haiti. You know what I'm saying? Now, what's cool, what's crazy is why did they decide to call it the Indigenous Army of Haiti? That's the question. And when you do the knowledge, you find out it's because people don't want to understand, don't want to realize, don't want to state that black people are indigenous to the Americas. That's the whole thing. Because the Indigenous Army of Haiti was formed after Battle de Verite. Battle de Verite was one of the most important battles of Haiti. The Battle de Verite was when the actual army was formed. The Indigenous Army consisted of three parts. It consisted of the mulatto bourgeoisie class. It consisted of the enslaved Africans from the colonies that was fighting for their freedom, and the indigenous Maroons, the indigenous black Maroons that were of the mountains, in the mountains of Haiti. Now, what happened in Haiti is once the Spaniards conquistadors, Columbus landed, once they started coming onto the island, they took over the west side of the island. They took over the east side of the island. That was all for them. And they used it as a staging point. They used it as a staging point to colonize South America. And the Haitians were all on the west side of the island. Now, when they arrived, Haiti was part of the Taino Kingdom. Now, what I'm going to tell you is very interesting because when Columbus arrived, it's written in his diaries that he found black people in Haiti. He was amazed to find black. He called them Ethiopians actually, and he stated how their society was high, excellent, and had no violence. Now, what's interesting and what people don't know is about that at the time of the arrival of Columbus and all the European explorers, all the European explorers that came, all of them, right when it came to the Americas, they found black people inhabiting the Americas. It was a well-known fact until they decided to change history. Like Trump has a term that he likes to say, where he likes to say fake news. Well, I got a term I like to say fake history. And most of the history that they tell you about black people in the Americas during the colonial era is fake history. I'll prove it with this. There was a guy named Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa was the richest man in the world, worth $400 billion or more. Kingdom of Mali, one of the greatest civilizations ever. We don't know if Africa will ever have great civilizations again because they haven't bounced back from colonialism yet, but hopefully they do. But getting back to Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa came into power because his older brother, Abu Bakari, vacated the throne. Why did Abu Bakari vacate the throne? Because he sent an expedition to the Americas to explore the Americas. Now, what they tell you is that his expedition never made it to the Americas. But believe it or not, the Queen of Haiti, Queen Anna Kanoa, she documented in a letter that she wrote to one of her chiefs during the time of Columbus, where she writes how Columbus's people arrival, the reason why they accepted him is because of the Abu Bakari. When he arrived, he landed in South America. It was a big news because it spread. And they brought new technology and they benefited the people. So it's documented that they wrote in the letters, Queen Anna Kanoa of Haiti, she wrote to her chiefs about how the explorers, Columbus explorers, reminded them of Abu Bakari expedition that came and arrived in the Americas, and they landed, and they were able to bring new technology, and the people benefited for them. That's why they were so welcoming to Columbus. But yeah, all South America was the Olmecs. We had indigenous civilizations on here on par with Africa, because at the time, like you can see from the globe, from the continent, all of them fit into one in a puzzle. And when they split up, we weren't all secluded to Africa. We were spread apart. So when the continent shift, whatever event happened, wherever it landed and whatever part of it was the civilization developed. In fact, the Olmec civilization was the foundation civilization of South America. The Olmecs were black, the Mayans was black, the Aztecs was black. People don't know how actually far it goes back. Now I'm going to get you to my partner. He's going to bring us some knowledge on the indigenous history of Haiti.
Hi, my name is Marie. I'm going to talk about a couple of things, because we want to talk about the Federal Reserve has Haitian money in there. I don't know if people know. So basically in 1915, the U.S. Marines invaded Haiti under the guise of protecting their affairs and protecting their interests in Haiti. What they did do between 1915 and 1932, my mother saw them with her own eyes. My mother was 5 years old, but she remembers seeing the Marines. And they took money out of Haiti. They took the wealth out of Haiti that's still in the reserves today, the Federal Reserve in Manhattan. And the other thing is, people don't realize America, the battle to escape tyranny from England, was fought also by Haitians in this country. Haitians came here and died here under Christophe, Henry Christophe, who became one of the leaders of the Haitian Revolution. He was here as a young man and helped in the American Revolution. Haitians died here so America would be free. So Columbus in 1492 is said to discover America. He didn't discover America. Columbus landed in what today is Hispaniola, which is Haiti, Dominican Republic. So what he did when he came to Haiti and saw the indigenous people, the Taino, Arawak, and Carib, he saw they were in gold, because gold to them, they adored themselves with gold. So he saw that he could bring back the Queen Isabella, King Ferdinand. Look what I found in the Americas. So he proceeded to subjugate the Taino people, my ancestors, for the gold that he saw. He chopped off people's hands if they didn't bring a certain amount of gold. They brutalized the people there, almost wiping them out. So he never discovered America. He landed in what today is Haiti. And I think the Christopher Columbus statue should come down.
Also, I want to say that the Haiti was part of Taino Kingdom. That when Christopher Columbus arrived, and what happened is when he arrived, they sent him, he went to Barbados first, which was the leader, and the reason they sent him to Haiti is because they told him all the gold was there. But yeah, she's right about the Taino Kingdom. That the Taino Kingdom, at the arrival, Haiti was a part of it, and they were all black indigenous people. As a matter of fact, it connects to African Americans here, because a lot of people don't realize that African American is the only demographic that has been reclassified from Negro, colored, black, to African American. That's because their ancestors were the indigenous black Indians that they found here that went through chattel slavery. So there's a lot of indigenous populations in the Americas that was buried because of the colonial history that was switched up, fake history. Break it down.
There's a book called, to look up these facts, a book called The Destruction of the Indies by a priest that followed Columbus on his journeys. He documented this in a diary. The book is called The Destruction of the Indies by Bartolomé de las Casas. Bartolomé de las Casas traveled with him, with Christopher Columbus on his journey, and wrote that down in the book. So you should get that book.
And I just want to say one thing, she could continue. Bartolomé de las Casas, they used the first census in Haiti to erase us. We didn't indict the black Tainos that was in Haiti. The Spaniards used the first census to erase us, to extinct us. So they used the paperwork to erase us like they do to this day. The first census is what they used to erase us. So we didn't really all die from malaria or from whatever disease
no, they didn't want
say.
to because my grandmother's indigenous.
Yeah.
I have grandparents who are indigenous Indians of the people that were found in Haiti when Columbus came. So there's many indigenous presence in Haiti. When you go to Haiti now, when I went to Haiti in 2008, I turned on the TV in my hotel. The first thing I saw was a channel called Indigene. I was shocked to learn that they still preserve a lot of their indigenous traditions, their rites of passage, parades. Always the indigenous presence is shown in Haiti to this day. The name Haiti, Haiti, the original name is an indigenous name, these beautiful mountains. So they've kept the indigenous name of Haiti when they freed them from France.
But the thing about it is they want to erase black people as indigenous. They don't want to admit. When you ever hear of indigenous people or indigenous Aboriginal people, you never see black people. You always see the mixed people or this people. But black people are the original race of the planet. Every other race comes from black people. And then for some reason, when all the other races came into being, they just started marginalizing us ever since they've come into being wherever they at. If it was the black Chinese, if it was the Australian Aborigines, if it was the indigenous population of black indigenous of the Americas, if it was the black Europeans, because Africans migrated into Europe first. Yeah, they never want to admit black people are indigenous and black people are indigenous Aboriginal people of the planet. We're melanated.
I think it's because to subjugate a people and keep them down, you have to make them think they're inferior to you. That's their justification to say, okay, I'm gonna keep my foot on your neck because you're lesser than me. That's how they use that ideology to subjugate people, take their riches, their land, the water, the minerals. So it's almost like they have to make you feel or make history think that you're lesser than in order to exploit you. So that's how this whole machine works. What else can I talk about? I could talk about.
Well, right now we're going to do the indigenous. This is the indigenous. This is the first week we're doing. We're going to do this again. This is just the first video. We just had to break down indigenous people for you. You know what I'm saying?
I like that.
So anything you have to say indigenous, this is what we're sending out. And this is the first one we're going to do. Much love, peace from the Haitian revolutionaries out there on Operation Tabula Rasa.
Okay.